Hello, hello. I'm Della.
I'm Paula.
And I'm Colleen.
Welcome to the second episode of the Butterfly Effect, ladies.
Yay!
I know, that's awesome, so exciting. So I want to welcome you on the podcast again, and also want to welcome all our viewers who are joining us. I just want to make sure that I have streaming showing on Facebook, and I want you ladies to take your time and go ahead and start a watch party. If you're watching us right now, please go ahead and share this fantastic discussion we're going to have. Start a watch party and share this information with all your friends. This is going to be fantastic. All right. So, Colleen,
Yes.
what's our topic tonight?
So today, alone or lonely, what is the difference? So I started with, I looked it up in the dictionary. So the definition, I'll start with alone if that's okay, ladies.
Yes.
Okay. So to be alone is simply means to physically be by yourself. So there's no feelings attached to it. It just means that you're physically by yourself.
What did you find out, Paula?
I agree. I believe it. A person is alone when he's by himself, and it refers to a state of solitude rather than an emotion.
Okay. Well, I posed this question on social media today.
Oh.
Yes. Alone and lonely. Do you know the difference? And funny enough, 50% said yes and 50% said no.
Oh.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
I am very surprised.
I actually asked my husband, I said, alone and lonely. He's like, what's the difference? So even though, I mean, we talked about this and I thought it was, I think it's such a great topic to discuss, because even though we think, oh, it's so obvious, a lot of people might not really know the difference, or we can bring some awareness to the issue.
Well, I also believe there is an interconnection between those two, because a person is lonely when he's alone, but it has an emotion attached to it, right? Like he feels sad about it. So that's how I can see now, by saying that 50 said yes, we know the difference, and 50 said no, how that can play a factor, because it's almost like lonely does not exist without the alone, but alone can exist without the lonely. Does that make sense?
What do you think?
So can you repeat that again?
I said that a person is lonely. Let me see if I can recall it. A person is lonely when he's alone and feels sad about it. So how I kind of thought about it was that you can feel alone and not feel lonely, but also you feel lonely when you are alone. You know?
Well, because
guys, let's put that out to the audience and see what they think, right? Let's ask for some comments. Let's ask for your input as we discuss this. What do you think? We ask everybody to give us their definition. Let's just tackle alone for now. What is your definition of alone? And give us some examples of when you last felt alone. How did you feel? Describe the feeling for us. Feeling of alone. Okay, so Paula, when was the last time you felt alone? Give us an example of the time you felt alone. Or do you want Colleen to go first?
You know, for me, actually, I can go ahead, since and Colleen can come after and I guess give her opinion on that. For me, being alone has never been a problem, because I end up leaving home to go to this professional ballet school when I was very young. So by default, I ended up learning how to be okay alone. I've learned from very early age to take care of my needs and myself all alone because my mom was not there with me, right? So I'm actually more of an introvert than an extrovert. And I honestly can say that I need to be alone at times in order for me to function optimally. Even my little girls know that when mom needs time alone, if I say I need a few minutes on my own, they do not disturb me. They understand that. They honor that, right? So I cannot recall a time that alone has been a problem for me personally. However, I have had moments when, because of being alone, I defer from going certain places. Only because I thought I would be looked upon as being a weirdo, going to, I don't know, or so, for example, one example is that I've been in Canada for 24 years. And I remember throughout the last 20 plus years, I kept on asking friends, believe it or not, even my own husband, back when I was married, about going to a symphony. And most often than not, I would get a reply like, he's so boring. Can you pick something else? Let's go to a concert. Let's go to a dance. Let's go do something else. And because of feeling that I will be, I don't know, somehow looked upon as being something, I don't know, different, and being judged or criticized by, oh my gosh, look at her, she's alone. I didn't go for 20 years. I did not go to the symphony, even though it was something that was important for my heart, for my soul. And I remember 2 years ago, I said, the heck with this. I'm going to go to the symphony alone because I can't find anybody that can come with me. So I end up going. And at the time, it so happened that Casaloma opened up this symphony in the garden. I don't know if you heard about it. Yeah. And I end up every Tuesday night. It was like I had the most amazing time. And I tell you, there are times when, because you see couples, you see group of people going together, they will look and kind of give me that look, and I'm like, so what? Like what? So what I actually did, I end up talking to people, like, oh, so tell me, how long you been coming here? And I see you have your husband and wife. I made friends that way, but I no longer felt that, barrier. And I said, I'm alone. It's what it is. I'm going to still do what I like to do. But I felt awkward at first. The first time I went out that way, I was like, almost, I felt like everybody's watching me because I was alone, Yeah. It's a very interesting feeling. What about Pauline?
So, yeah, so I actually resonate with a lot of what you just said, Paula, because I am also an introvert. I find that because I can be very empathic, where I walk in a room and I feel people's feelings. So I like to spend a lot of alone time. What's different from you a little bit is that I like going out to restaurants by myself, to the movies by myself. So I don't mind doing those activities by myself. I love to take long drives by myself. So I'm very comfortable being alone. And I know that we were talking about it before we did the broadcast. And we were talking about, for some people, simply being alone equates to being lonely. And we were talking about the importance of being able to be comfortable being by yourself. So I've spent a lot of time doing that, like challenging myself, because when at first I felt kind of awkward going to restaurants and stuff by myself, but ultimately I learned how to love it. In fact, there was one time I went to like a Wednesday night at 10 o'clock. I just decided I'm going to go to a movie. So I went to the movies, and not only was it there was nobody in the theater with me, to the point where the staff actually came in to see if there was anyone watching the movie. Yeah. So I got to watch that.
There's one person watching the movie.
Yeah, so I got to pick my seat. I had my phone on. I felt like a rebel.
That's when put your feet up on the chair. That's funny.
Yeah, laugh out loud, talk to myself. Yeah, it was awesome. What about you, Della?
People. Oh, I was going to say, is it okay if we acknowledge some of our
Oh,
viewers?
absolutely.
Okay. So I've got Mom watching. Hi, Mom. What do you think of being alone and lonely, Mom? James McNeil, he says, brilliant topic and beautiful souls. Thank you. And thank you, James. Beverly Cohen, she says, being alone, you can be content with your own company. Right?
That is
that is possible.
Yeah,
right?
perfect. Yeah.
And she also says, feeling lonely, you miss being with someone else. So, right, that's a great differentiation. Thank you, Bev. We're going to, and Medea says, I like being alone too. So, let's see. Robert J. Moore is watching. Thank you. And he says, some wonderful ladies on here. Thank you, Robert. Thank you. Flattery will get you everywhere, Robert. So, okay, another person, Nasser John is watching. Loneliness is for God only, he says. What's your take on this? This is a little of a different conversation. But so for me, I got to tell you that for a very long time, I thought being alone and loneliness were the same thing. This is years ago when I always avoided being alone because I wasn't comfortable with myself. I wasn't comfortable with the idea. So to me, happiness, joy meant to have lots of people around me. So, always parties, always in the middle of a big crowd, the social butterfly, being an extrovert. I needed that constant crowd to give me the energy. And it changed over time. I think as I became more comfortable with myself, I was comfortable being alone. And now, like Medea and like you ladies, I love being alone. I love spending time by myself. So isn't that interesting how we change?
Yeah.
So anything else on the topic of alone? What can you think of?
I think that the lone versus loneliness, I think the alone part is a much simpler definition in that it literally means being by yourself. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about how some people are more comfortable with it than others. But I mean, I've been living alone for about 3.5 years now. And like I said, I'm a bit of an introvert. So I reveled in that the ability to do what I want to do and watch what I want to watch and listen to what I want to listen to. So, and I think there's a lot of people, I think that my thought now is that if I were to join a family again or build a family again, that I would have to adjust because I'm so used to being alone. And I think that would be a big adjustment for me. What about you guys?
Paula?
Oh, I think Paula's frozen.
It's frozen. Okay. Well,
I'll in a really good pose though. So
it's fantastic. Any pose. In any pose, you look good. Medea says, being lonely isn't a choice. Being alone is a choice. What do you think of that?
I think that is a really good distinction as well. Bev had one earlier and Medea I think that's a very good although I think for some people they might say that being lonely isn't a choice.
Ooh, yeah. So I mean, that's what Medea says. Being lonely isn't a choice. Being alone is a choice.
Okay, sorry, I mixed it up. Oh, we lost Paula.
So yeah, she says being lonely isn't a choice. Being alone is a choice. Now, yes, and we want to so we want to talk more about that, right? We want, because when we talk about the feeling of loneliness, there's a sadness attached to it.
Right.
And wouldn't it be great if we could recognize that and remedy that feeling? I think ultimately that's what our purpose is tonight.
Right.
right? So I think we have Paula back. Let me just bring her back on.
Sure.
Hello, Paula. you left us.
The Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that is what it is. So, okay, here's an interesting comment from Nasser. He says, in that case, you should call it spending time by yourself. So, being alone is spending time by yourself, and I think that's one of the definitions, right?
Well, that goes exactly with what Medea said, right? That it's choosing to be by yourself. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I like that, because then you're putting a positive spin on it rather than a negative. So
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, the comments are coming. I think we're touching on a good subject here, on a good topic. Medea says again, feeling lonely is feeling sadness. Yes, that's exactly what we were saying. And being alone is empowering. What do you think of that, Paula?
I agree. Because being alone, it forces you to dive deep within yourself and find ways to manage everything on your own. And how can you manage being with others if you can't if you cannot really be by yourself? You yourself said, Della, you had in your prior to understanding the benefits of being alone, you wanted to be surrounded by people ongoingly, non-stop almost, for you to feel that you were happy. But happy does not come from others. Happy comes from inside. So the only way you can find that happy inside is by spending time alone. It's and I absolutely agree. I'm not sure who mentioned there, but I agree with the part that when you, I don't know if it said alone or loneliness about and brought in God. As a Christian, I feel I resonate with that.
Oh, that was Nasser. He said loneliness is for God only.
Yes, I wish that was true for everyone. We are all different. So yeah, lonely. It's very different, because I think alone there is not so much negativity to it. There is no emotion, right? It's like we said earlier. It's just a state of solitude, right? But no emotion attached to it. Now, when we attach the emotion to it and the disconnect from others, be that real or be that perceived as being disconnected from others, it brings this sadness, right? It gets into, and then that's when you stumble over on your own feet, in a way.
Okay, so I'm going to put a challenge to you, okay, in 1 second. Well, Drew is watching also. Naveed is watching. Pat Breeden. And well, I can't see who's watching on your Facebook feed on obviously, but these are the people I see here. Thank you so much for watching today. We're discussing the feelings of alone and loneliness, and to see what the differences are. We invite you to please go to the chat box and just write for us. When was the last time you felt alone? And what does that mean for you? Give us an example of where you were. What were you doing? Carla says, Christina says, hi, mommy. Mommy, hello, we're watching now. Hi, everybody. Okay, so
I love you guys.
So what about someone who says, I feel alone because I don't have anyone with me. What about that?
I guess the difference is, do they say that because they're feeling uncomfortable, or are they feeling lonely because they don't have somebody with them? Or are they feeling simply that they are by themselves? like I said earlier, I think that there are some people that are very much uncomfortable with the idea, even the idea of being alone. And I think that that would be, and share with me your comments, what your opinion on this. But I think that if you're not comfortable by yourself, then there's something that you can look at and find out, why is that? Because I believe that once you love yourself completely, and I know, Della, earlier you mentioned that that was a struggle for you years ago. So once you love yourself, I think you become comfortable being alone. So if you feel uncomfortable being alone, then I would look at that and say, why is that? Because I know that when I was a kid, that might have been something that I went through, but I was kind of stubborn, and and I said, I want to, and like Paula, you were saying earlier, I wanted to go to the movies. I wanted to go out to a restaurant. I didn't have somebody at the moment to go. So I just went, and I got used to that. So, but I think that until you're comfortable with yourself, that being alone could be a struggle.
Okay. So do we agree that then being alone is not necessarily a bad thing?
Personally, I think it's a good thing to spend time alone, at least sometimes.
Okay. All right, Paula?
I was going to say that that's how I see that the interconnection between those two words. They are both adjectives, by the way, right? So I find that you feel lonely because you are alone. It's true. It's very true. Now, what you do with that, it determines, are you alone? Is like Colleen said, it's fine. Like many of us are alone. And in the world now, I think there are like 50-50 single people versus, in relationship. So a lot of us are alone. Now, what does that mean exactly? Like, does that make you feel lonely from time to time? Is that normal? Absolutely. We all have these feelings that sometimes come and go. The question is, are you feeling more lonely than you feeling connected to others? Because that's when the question comes and says, okay, you feel, let's say, more than, I don't know the statistics exactly, but I think that the statistics say that if you feel lonely more than once a week, then you can dive into becoming chronically lonely, and that will lead into other
depression.
Exactly, like you start feeling isolated and excluded and left out, and feeling empty inside, and and that's when the challenge starts. Those feelings are normal. All feelings are normal. But the question is, how often do you feel those feelings? And what do you do about it? Like, how do you, right? How do you rise above it? Like, what do you guys think? Like, I honestly, that's why I said earlier, you feel lonely because you are alone, and you are alone because you are lonely. You can play both ways.
Yeah, I love that, Paula. I love it. So just on here, Medea says you can be living in a house filled with people and still feel lonely because it's looking for love in all the wrong places. We have to look in the mirror and start with self-love. I love it. I love that. And Nasser says, if you love yourself, you will never be alone. Isn't that good?
That is very good. Both that. It's funny. I love both those statements. So thank you very much for sharing that. Medea, that was you said what was on my mind was that you can be in a room full of people and still feel utterly alone. And I agree with Paula 100% in that it only becomes an issue when you're doing it often and you're feeling that also overwhelm, or like when there's feeling lonely from time to time is absolutely a normal thing. It's when it exceeds what you're comfortable with.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Jim Jackson just joined us, and Fatane Ramari just joined us. Thank you so much for watching. We are discussing the feelings of loneliness and feeling alone. Before we move on to our next word, I wanted to share a little something with you. So this is, again, going back to the confusion between the two words of feeling alone and lonely. When my brother was really ill, and there was a time when I felt really alone. Again, I'm saying that word because that's how I felt, alone on my own, in that I didn't have the support of anyone around me. I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody. Nobody understood, and so the only way that changed for me was when I started sharing what was really going on. And as soon as I started sharing, I noticed that I wasn't alone anymore, because there were so many other people who felt exactly the way I did, who went through exactly the same thing I did. Everyone knew someone who was dealing with some sort of mental illness, and that knowing that was totally freeing for me. I no longer felt alone. So it's interesting how sometimes we prevent ourselves from getting the support that we need to avoid feeling alone. Does that make sense to you?
That resonates with me so much, because I think that a lot of us do that, right? We want to do things and handle things by ourselves. We don't want to be a burden on other people. We don't want to be looked at in a different way. So we might keep things to ourselves and not reach out. And it just perpetuates that feeling of loneliness. And then the moment we reach out and say, hey, I'm here, we're surprised. Oh yeah, I have all these people that care for me and that are here for me. So I think that was a really good point, that sometimes you are so afraid to reach out that you forget that and for you, there were some strangers even that were there and supportive, because where you thought there might be judgment, it just never happened.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Anything to add to that, Paula?
I believe that one of the best things you can do when you feel like that is to find at least one person that you can connect to at the heart level, so you can share and feel comfortable. And I find that sometimes all you need is someone holding that space for you to just share. You don't need anything else. That alone helps you and uplifts you, only because you feel heard, because you feel like someone is there. And absolutely, it's important to not isolate ourselves. There is a say that misery loves company. So when we feel like that, we withdraw from others, including my own families and close friends. And I've struggled with that throughout my life, realizing that that's not ideal. It's not what is going to help me rise above these feelings. And as I said, it at times it's normal to have those feelings, but if they come more often, that's when you will be in your best interest, and will be a benefit to you personally to share at least with one person. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that throughout my life. That has helped me tremendously.
Thank you. There's a couple of comments, just like what you said, Paula. So Medea says, that's why having a community or your soul tribe is so important. Like people who understand you, people who get you, who have same mindset as you. Nasser says, who is the most important person in our life except ourselves? So love it and spend amazing time with it and never be alone. Thank you, Nasser John. Okay, so that was a great gateway to loneliness. Now, Colleen, you looked up in the dictionary the definition of loneliness?
I did. It said what we've been saying. Sad because one has no friends or company. That made me sad just reading it, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. So what about you, Paula? Anything else other than that you can say about loneliness?
You
As
see,
definition?
you can feel lonely when you are physically alone, but you can also feel lonely, as Colleen said earlier, in the presence of others. Now, loneliness is really a reflection of how you feel in relation to feeling connected or not connected to other people. And I as a Christian, and I'm sorry for those that are not,
You don't have to apologize.
I find that we forget.
Here.
Yeah, like I'm not again. I mean, I'm welcoming anybody. Like, you believe, you don't believe, it doesn't matter to me. It's how you are from your heart. It matters more. But I'm comfortable in saying that. So as a believer, I found that even the Bible, the first few lines of the Bible in Genesis, it says that we are not made to be alone. Look at the story of Adam. And most people, if they are not Christian or not, they know Adam and Eve, right? They just know that part of the Bible. Like, God created Adam, and then he said, I am not going to leave him alone. I'm going to build or make a helper, a companion for him. So he did. So we are designed to be in community with God and with others. And we sometimes forget that. We are too judgmental or critical about all of our feelings, feeling that, oh, I shouldn't feel like that. Oh, I shouldn't, think like that or want that. But we do need one another, and even though we interconnected, we like it or we don't, we must create a community around us that it's there for us and we are there for them, kind of, you know what I mean?
Perfect. Yeah. So can I ask you something, Paula?
Sure.
Would you agree with this? Loneliness can also be attributed to internal factors.
Absolutely. 100%. Because it could be physically you are alone, and you are alone. Being alone, you feel lonely. But when you are surrounded by family, when you are surrounded by people that love you, but you do not feel that, you don't feel that connection, you still feel lonely and isolated, right? You feel disconnected, and that's when lonely comes. And that's when it takes over your whole being.
Mm-hmm. What about the audience? Have you ever felt lonely, audience? Our viewers who are watching, can you think of a time when you felt lonely? As a matter of fact, if you can just put a 1, just type a 1 in there as a comment, just to let us know that you have. You don't have to explain, but I just want to see if you have. Medea says, loneliness is a sense of feeling of not belonging, the feeling of an outcast or an outsider. This feeling sometimes comes from childhood traumas. Mm-hmm. People are typing in 1. Yes. So I think all of us at some point have felt lonely for different reasons. So do you want to go into why we feel lonely sometimes? I mean, Paula, you touched on some. Colleen, you also did touch on some. If the audience could also tell us, what do you think? What causes us to feel lonely sometimes? What is your experience, Colleen?
Well, a few years ago, or several years ago, in my marriage, I felt, even though I was in the house and there was other people around, I felt very lonely all the time. I felt, and so I think that Medea said it well, is it's a disconnection. It's like when you don't feel that you have the support, and honestly, I didn't love myself at the time. So for me, that was what triggered it. And then that's what started me on my journey to learn to love myself. So that was my experience, one of my experiences with feeling lonely. And obviously there's little bits here and there, but that was a really big one in my life. And I think that, you mentioned it earlier, Della, how is there a psychological side to loneliness? And I agree 100% that there is. That generally, if you, even if it's just in passing, but I think that there's something that in that moment you're lacking in self-confidence or you're lacking in self-love that brings on that loneliness. So, and I think that we all feel it at some point, but you know, for me, I got to the point where it was overwhelming. And then I met my coach and I learned strategies.
So I just want to interject here. It's funny how we're talking about this. Part of what I've learned a long time ago is to be aware of the emotions you feel, because when you can give your emotion a name, then you can deal with it better. You can cope with it better, and you find the right solution. So I learned about the word HALT, HALT. So if I'm feeling sad, I ask myself, what's wrong with me? How am I feeling? Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Or am I tired?
Yes.
Oh,
It's funny how lonely fits right in there, because that is something that we might feel, and just being aware of how I'm feeling at the moment can allow me to make the right choice. So I just thought I'd share that with you. I thought it was pretty clever.
that is very clever. I like that. And it also tells you, like the HALT word itself says stop.
Stop and think
Stop
about
and think about those, and then you go through the acronym. I love it. Thank you.
So Nasser is funny. He says, with new technology, no one can admit he's lonely. For example, I'm alone, but I'm having fun with you three beautiful ladies. And that's part of the strategy, right? I mean, if you know that what you're feeling right now is lonely, then let's find what you can do to remedy the situation. Paul, what do you think? What are some strategies?
Oh dear, strategies for me. Can I just share a story maybe first, and then
please. We love
So
stories.
there were many times in my life that I felt alone and even lonely, right? Like devastated in that alone feeling, like I was quite low. So one of those moments that are still sitting in my heart quite heavy, even though I overcame the situation and I rised above it, and I can now speak about it without bawling my eyes and crying and feeling sorry for myself. I was in my 30s, and out of the blue, my husband came home one evening and said that I'm done. I sold the house. I'm out of here. You have 2 weeks to move. And I was left literally on the street, and kids on my waist, so to speak, and one of which was I was still nursing. I had no money. I had no job. I had no one to go, no family around. You can just imagine how I felt. Alone and loneliness is like a lot deeper than what we're discussing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that state, I realized that I had two options. I cried. It was like instant, right? It's just not controllable. I was in a shock. I was devastated. And I thought about it. Okay, my life is over. I'm done. I'm giving up. But then somehow I thought, wait a minute, I can't do that. I have to be a responsible mom. So as devastated as I was, I turned to God. And as I was crying, devastated, memorizing some of my Bible verses have uplifted me like instantly. And to this day, when I feel lonely, what I do, the first thing I do is somehow my brain by default goes to these verses. One of them is Luke 6, I think 37. I don't remember exactly what in the Bible, but I remember the verse. So it says, Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you whenever you are. And so do not fear, for I'm with you. Do not be dismayed, for I'm your God. I will strengthen you, and I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Do not judge, so you will not be judged. Do not condemn, so you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. So, repeatedly saying those in my mind at the time, I remember just like out of the blue one morning, I woke up within 2 days, I think, or 3 days max. And in that moment, I decided that I will never, ever depend on anyone but God. And I will find my strength, not in me, but by surrendering to his will. So for me, that was the way to go, because again, I grew up in a Christian home. Now, what I find very helpful for me also, it's sleep. Honestly, we underestimate, you said it in the HALT acronym. Being tired makes you more sensitive and prone to thoughts and negative feelings by default, just being tired, right? Now, studies have shown that our body recovers from the day and it repairs itself through sleep, but also helps us stay focused and become more productive. Now, we have not thought about it much, but it has a huge impact on our happiness as well. So it turns out that people that are sleep deprived cannot recall very easily pleasant memories, but somehow they recall negative memories perfectly fine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So there was an experiment done by Walker where sleep deprived students were asked to memorize a certain amount of words. And it turned out that 81% could remember the words that had negative connotation to them, such as, let's say, cancer, for example. And only 31% could recall the words that had positive connotation to them, such as sunshine, for example. So isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. That's really something.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great. Thank you for sharing that.
So one thing I want to share that I do that for me it's been extremely helpful, and I cannot underestimate the power of it. It's movement, exercise, physical exercise, even if it's 7 or 10 minutes a day. Honestly, it has such a profound effect on our happiness and the state of our well-being. It's unmeasurable. Like it's amazing how it affects our brain, releasing proteins and endorphins and makes us feel good instantly. I even found that people that work out for the sake of losing weight, for example, even though their body appearance might not change because that takes time, somehow they feel better about themselves. They feel better about their body. They feel happier just by doing those few exercises every day.
Absolutely. You're so right. Look at me. It's because I box. No, but those are great strategies. Great strategies. And you know what? I mean, that's what this is about, right? Just becoming aware, informing, and offering some tools that works for you personally, that works for you, Colleen, and works for me. And we're asking our beautiful viewers here for what works for them. So let's see if there's anything here that I can go back to. Let's see. Lisa says, thank you for underlining that, Paula. Sleep is so important, and yet we don't make it a priority. We need to follow Ariana Huffington's example and her sleep movement. Now, I don't know who Ariana Huffington is, but I'm sure she has something to offer if you've mentioned it. Perhaps maybe you can share with us something, Lisa, and something maybe we can go back to, a link or something that we can benefit from. Maybe I really like the HALT comment. And let's see, Nasser says in Bible is reported 365 times, fear not. So once per day, fear not.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Okay. So what about you, Colleen? What can you offer us? What strategies, what tools to overcome the feeling of loneliness?
My answer, some of them are an extension of what Paula was talking about, which includes self-care things. And you talked about sleep and exercise, but things like taking a deep breath, right? You want to trigger those same endorphins that you get from the exercise, the hormones, the dopamine and serotonin, and you know what I mean? Get rid of that. Get rid of the bad hormones and get those good ones going. And so definitely that side of it. The other thing for me is that I found that volunteering, so being of service and helping other people, and gratitude. And I know that that's a big one for you, Della. But yeah, so being of service. Now, part of that, I think that part of that was, it was back in the day, and part of it was I was escaping to some degree as well, because I still wasn't loving myself, but it gave me a sense of purpose, and it gave me a sense of, so that I wasn't alone and I was around people and I felt like I was helping people, and that took away some of that loneliness that I had. So, but yeah, state of mind and self-care is critical in, I think, included in this. And that's something I think some people might not have put together, because when you think loneliness, what's that got to do with what you eat? Right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But it has to do with your state of mind,
like you said, right?
Pardon me?
It's a state of mind. You're changing the state of mind, and all these little tools help. So thank you, Lisa. She put in the link to Ariana Huffington. Thank you so much. So generous. Medea says mindfulness, meditation, and deep breathing exercises. Right. Thank you. So yeah, please everybody just put down your tools, your strategies of what you do to overcome the feeling of loneliness. I know that for me, I ditto, like everything you say, ditto, right? Like the sleep, honestly, the meditation, the gratitude, the exercise, finding a community of support, but also self-love. I think someone mentioned it before. Nasser, I think, mentioned it. Self-love, with self-care, self-compassion, just things that were never really of value to me when I was at my worst, right? In my darkest moments, these things didn't have a meaning to me. And when I started on this path of self-development and growing and changing, the loneliness just slowly evaporated.
Yeah.
And it's funny how that works. And you just you don't feel that way anymore. It happens, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. I think it's just it's every day, right? Every day a little bit. Every day a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how are you today, Paula?
What do you mean?
Where are you with the feelings of alone and loneliness today?
I'm actually in a very good place right now. Very good place. I have moments when I feel lonely, and in those moments I pray, right? I've created a system now with that I follow. Like I have a routine. I find for me routine is very, very important. And now I'm a part of a 5 a.m. club. So I wake up early in the morning.
Yes.
Honestly, it's changed my life for the better. I cannot emphasize how important for me, because I still have young children at home and I'm the primary caregiver, and they are with me all the time, especially now with the isolation that we are facing in COVID. I found that to be amazing because my youngest wakes up at 7:30 the latest. So by waking up at 5 a.m., I found that I have enough time for me to do whatever it is that I want. Do I want to do yoga? Do I want to do a stretching, meditation, read the Bible and not be distracted, or work on my career, or on whatever it is that I feel like I want to work, right? So I created a schedule that I follow, and that's incredible. Talk about what Colleen said about self-care. Honestly, I, in the past and until recently, was convinced that serving other and nourishing everybody else but me was the way to go. And the moment I thought of me, I felt guilty. What do you mean me? No, I have to serve. That's my purpose in this life, to serve God, to serve others. And I have never felt better being selfish and really taking care of myself the first thing in the morning, every morning. But I must say that there are days, because I've been a night owl all my life, and I was convinced that there is no other way for me. Throughout university, throughout college, I've studied throughout, like, until 4 o'clock in the morning. I would rather study at night than in the morning. Like, I believed I'm not a morning person. Now I can actually say that never say never, man. Like, it's so true. Never say never, because you will never know. So now I'm a 5 a.m. person, and I'm enjoying it. And did you know, though, that people that give in to this lonely feeling and sadness, 50%, there is a study done, I don't remember by whom, 50% die prematurely by isolating.
I heard that before.
Yeah.
By isolating themselves from social, family and friends gatherings. It's quite sad. But see, what we do with what we're doing right now, it's at least bringing that awareness, right? Bringing the awareness that those feelings are normal.
Yeah.
Right? It's a matter of us wanting, desiring to not stay in that cocoon, feeling horrible about ourselves. But as you said, Bella, talk to others. Find someone you can confide and share your heart with, that you can trust. Even if I find that even one person, it's better than not having any. You know, it's quite sad of what our world is going through right now. There was a study done by George Vellen, and it was he's done it for 72 years. He studied and worked closely with about 268, I believe, or somewhere around there, men. And then he had an interview in 2008, and he was asked, what have you learned through this study of 72 years of study? And then he said that the only thing that really matters in life are your relationships to other people. So just remember one thing. If you can remember one thing, don't be alone. Don't stay alone. I mean, you may be living alone. You might be isolated because of COVID, but we have this technology that it's all around us. We can just pick up the phone. We can look at each other and talk to people all around the world.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Use the tools. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, reach out. Find me on Facebook. Message me. I'm happy to talk to you.
You can reach Paula at www.healwithpaula.ca.
Healwithpaula@gmail.com.
Oh, that's your website. Oh, my bad. Healwithpaula@gmail.com. Perfect.
That's my email.
Thank you. Colleen, before I go to you, Medea, we have to treat ourselves the same way we would treat the people we love in our lives. We seem to be so much harder on ourselves, so critical, and have negative self-talk instead of showing love, compassion, or kindness to ourselves the same way we show to others. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes, well said. Thank you, Medea. Colleen, we'll go to you. And so how are you today, my friend, with the feelings of lonely and alone? What do you do?
So today I'm good. When COVID started, and I live alone, like I said, and I have for several years, but I always had the opportunity when I needed that one-on-one connection with people that could just pop out and have lunch with my friend and do those things. And when COVID came around, initially I felt very alone and isolated, and I had a hard time with it, and I actually overdid it, because yes, Paula, you mentioned about Zoom and connecting and using technology, but I was booking 4 things a day every day, like weekends, weekdays. I was I was always online doing stuff, to the point where even last week I said, nope, I need to just unplug. Like I haven't unplugged entirely, because I think it's important to stay connected, but I really kind of took myself out of the picture and said, no, you need to take some self-time and do what you want to do for you. And I did. I reconnected with myself, because I was trying to counterbalance that feeling of loneliness and the isolation of COVID, and I overdid it. so I overdid it, and because I am an introvert, I found that it was just the feelings from everybody was overwhelming. So in the last week especially, I've really gotten back in touch with me and honored that. So today I am awesome. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. And you are awesome.
I want to hear yours. We only have a few minutes left.
I will. I just want to say hi to Debbie and Sue and Caroline, who are also watching. I want to make sure I don't miss anyone who's watching us, and they're honoring us with their presence here.
Yes, thank you so much. And the participation today has been so heartwarming, that everybody's and not only watching but also commenting. So thank you very much for that.
Very nice. So my friend Piers just joined. Hi, Piers. I want to read what Lisa said. I believe it. Relationships are so important, and there are always like-minded people within reach if we are open to meeting them.
Yes.
And then she also says Zoom burnout is a real thing, Colleen. And yes, and Lisa says, you are so awesome, Colleen Woodhead. Love you, sister.
I love you too, Lisa.
Well, for me, I'm doing great. Honestly, I can't get enough of this. Like, you find me on lives every other day. Almost every other day, and I find it so much fun connecting with people all through the world, and just it's wonderful. It's a wonderful platform. So we're so lucky to have this. But again, having the real connections, with people that think like you, that get you, and that's really, really important. I think for me, that's what grounds me, knowing that there are people I can turn to when I need a little bit of a helping hand. But positive affirmations for sure. Paula, you said it. And I mean, when you were reading those verses from the Bible, I was like, it doesn't really matter what you believe. Those are positive affirmations, and anyone can use them. We can all use them. And so, kudos to you if you use positive affirmations on a daily basis, because I think they're so important. Vanessa just joined us. Hi, Vanessa. So, girls, we're out of time, man.
Oh, again?
It's been a blast.
Time management. Ooh.
So just everybody knows, this is a once a month thing. So the third Thursday of the month is when we will be back in July with another fantastic topic. If you feel like there's something that you want us to talk about, please put it out there. We'll come back and discuss it. So, Lisa just said, thank you, Lisa. So true, Della. It is great to connect with people from all around the globe. Yes, absolutely. So what do you say, girls?
Thank you. Thank you so
Call it a
much
night.
for
Call it a
tuning
night.
in and sharing your comments. I'm so appreciative. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for being here with us, everyone. And we send a virtual hug. And lots of love. Feel it.
Lots of love.
Great.
So, Colleen, what's your contact information for people to reach you now that we know Paula's?
Obviously, we're on Facebook, so you can reach me through Facebook Messenger for sure. And then my email is Colleen, 2 L's, 2 E's, colleen.woodhead@gmail.com. And I'm available there as well.
Thank you. And that's healwithpaula@gmail.com and colleen.woodhead@gmail.com. Correct?
And you,
Yeah.
how do they get in touch with you?
You can find me anywhere. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I am all over the place, baby. Medea says, thank you so much for this great conversation. My beautiful soul sisters, blessings of love light your way, my beautiful souls. Thank you, Medea. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Medea's going to be on Della's Voice on Sunday.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, we're going to have
I
a
have
great
her book.
interview.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't tell my nieces.
so she's going to be on Della's Voice, and it'll be awesome. I hope that you join us again next month, the third Thursday. I don't have a date, but we'll figure it out and we'll pull it out there. Thank you so much, Della, Paula, and Colleen. Great conversation and insight. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, we're going to call it a night. We're going to go to Paula with our tagline.
We are the butterfly effect, bringing you love,
hope,
and compassion.
Till next time, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.